closers, 50% of all businesses fail within the first 5 years. Now, what is the number one reason for that? You think? What do you think that number one reason is? Well, I've got the guy who is here to help us address that number one reason. His name is Saul Marquez. Am I saying the last name right, Mark?
Yep, you got it.
Saul Marquez. He is the CEO of Outcomes Rocket. And Saul, I want to welcome you to Close the Deal podcast.
Thank you so much, my friend. It's a pleasure to be here with you and your audience.
But before we get in there, I want to ask you a question, and it's going to probably tie it back a little bit to what the question I just asked. What is the most dangerous thing you see owners or salespeople doing today?
Well, I would tell you that one of the most dangerous things that I see is that they take a look at marketing as something that just anyone off the street could do.
Right.
You trust a CPA to do your books, right? You trust an attorney to represent you in court, but you let anybody off the street do your marketing.
That makes no sense, huh?
It's dangerous. 50% of businesses fail within 5 years, and the number one reason is lack of product demand. That's because you let anybody off the street do your marketing.
And you really need to know who is doing it, because I've known a couple of people who started agencies, and they're practiced with their clients on how to create the demand.
Not good.
No, it's not good. Yeah, I'm sure everybody listening to this who has a business has felt that exact pain at some point down the line.
You know all about danger, from locksmith to fishery.
My job with the seafood industry was to promote, so we represented all those commercial fishermen. And you think about that's the most dangerous job in America. And then, of course, you got logging in North Carolina. I represented all the loggers for the Carolinas. And yeah, that's fun. But the loggers never talked about marketing. The seafood industry is where I learned how to do marketing. And
oh, really?
Yeah, we drove about $2.5 billion a year in sales.
Wow.
So that
from Louisiana?
From Louisiana. Yeah.
Man, that's an industry right there.
It is. It is. It's a tough industry. Both are really tough industries. But, every business is tough. And we represented all the entrepreneurs, and that's who you help, businesses. So, but before we get into what you do, I want to ask you, who or what are you grateful for that helped you get to where you are today?
Man, that's a great question. I will say I am grateful for, honestly, I'll mention a couple, but I am grateful for the founding fathers of this country.
Ah, that's a new one. I've never had that. I love that.
They took the risk to go rogue on the British, and they paved a way for generations. I mean, generations of prosperity. I'm so grateful to our founding fathers for what they've done. My parents were from Mexico. They came to this country, grew up poor, and today where I sit, I'm just so grateful for what the founding fathers did. This America that we live and work in, that we're all owners of, we have responsibility for, is something that I wake up every day and I pinch myself. I'm grateful for it.
100%. I come back from overseas sometimes and I'm like, man, it's neat to visit other parts of the world, but I am always so grateful for, yeah. You want to kiss the ground almost.
You do, man. You do. Some places you go to, you come back and you're like, damn, man.
So that has given you the chance to create a business. So let's talk about what it is you do. And then let's talk about how, the ways you help people. We can dissect that a little bit and just dig in a little bit.
Absolutely. So, what we do is as you mentioned, right? The number one. Yeah.
And your background too, because you have
and my background.
You're the first person I've interviewed so far with a healthcare background. So I'm
honored.
So it's probably giving me some new terminology I might even hear today. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see.
You know what? So I'm honored, first of all. Thank you. And we'll keep it simple. The reality, it is simple. When you're doing the game of business, it's simple. So I think it was Richard Branson, right, Yul, that said it takes a really kind of expert in order to simplify.
It's true.
Any idiot can make something complex. And so I'm all about simplification. So I will say that the number one problem we solve is that lack of product demand, the number one reason why businesses fail. So that stat you mentioned, I love that stat. And then the second stat to partner with that is that So in 5 years, 50% fail. In 10 years, 97% fail. The number one reason is lack of product demand. So what we do is we help business owners solve that challenge. And what happens is this, is that marketing ends up being a soup of a lot of tactics. So you're in the franchise business, and if you're talking B2B franchise, you want more franchisees, you got a lot of ways to reach. You got a lot of ways to get out there, conferences, podcasts, webinars, reports, you name it. A quote that I love is from Sun Tzu, from The Art of War. And he said, tactics are the noise you hear before the war is lost. And what he meant by that is that if you start thinking about the guns, the tanks, and you get in fast, you're going to lose. You instead have to think about your position on the field. You got to think about your enemy's position. You got to think about strengths. You got to think about weaknesses. You got to think about opportunities. You got to think about supply, right? And then once you start thinking about all those things, you could make a plan. And where I find many business owners go wrong, and by the way, I'm raising up my hand because, I've learned my lessons. I've got scars, and my scars have shown me that when you take a little bit of extra time to do the strategy and the planning, you could get a lot further with the resources that you have to deploy for success.
So your healthcare background, how did that lead to what you're doing? And obviously, it's a different business model than a lot of businesses I've worked in. I'm not so familiar with it. How did that translate to what you do today?
Totally. Happy to dig in that. So I'm a history major. I love history. And I ended up in healthcare. My first job in healthcare was medical devices. So I was a sales rep for Stryker. I was selling spinal implants, hips and knees. And I learned a lot hanging out with the doctors and being in the hospital and all this stuff. At the end of the day, so I've been in healthcare for the last 20 years, always in a sales or a marketing role.
Okay.
At the end of the day, man, like before I got that job, I was doing sales, doing different types of sales, industrial sales. And in my internships before college, like I did roofing sales. Well, actually, one of the best jobs I ever had was door-to-door sales, selling roofs.
It's the best
that taught
training.
Me so much.
That is the best training in the world.
It taught me so much. Actually, those fundamentals, man, I haven't forgotten. And my first job out of college was the best training ground. So like to this day, the framework for objection handling, ECIR, ECIR, empathize, clarify, isolate, respond. I use it to this day, 20 years later in healthcare, right? So anyway, while the industry's different, there are fundamentals that remain the same. Sales and marketing, I climbed the corporate ladder. I was successful and I got pretty high up. I was like a VP at a medical device company, but I hated my job. I'm sure, right? You get a lot of probably corporates that want to get into the franchise game, probably.
Absolutely. And they just they climb the ladder and they're like, oh man, I'm on the wrong side of the wall. I'm on the wrong wall.
Yeah. So I was there, man. And by the way, I say that with gratitude. Like, I was like, and then I realized, like, so all my experience, the opportunities that I got, at least for me, I enjoy being with customers. I enjoy the impact of what you and I are doing right now.
Yes.
And I got away from that. It became more internal and meetings and corporate crap. And I got tired of that stuff. So I took a jump, man. And 3 years ago, I started the firm. And Outcomes Rocket is a business that is exclusively focused on healthcare. And we help mainly health technology companies and medical device companies make their impact, grow their businesses. They sell to providers, the health systems, they sell to insurance companies. And that's where we thrive. That's a very niche area. But a lot of what we do is also applicable. And we could talk about that.
So what if somebody, obviously somebody in healthcare, they get to know what those tactics are. What would you say are the top tactic or two that would translate to other businesses that you use to help them find their customers?
All of them. And it just depends on how, but I'm going to give you the framework.
Okay.
So here's the framework.
Okay. That's what we need to hear.
Yep. Marketing is essentially 3 different things. It falls into 3 buckets. Okay. Bucket number 1 is owned marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Bucket number 2 is earned marketing. And bucket number 3 is paid marketing. Okay. Now, we talked about like tactics are the noise you hear before the war is lost.
Mm-hmm.
Those 3 buckets are full of tactics. And that's why you got to start with strategy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you go, let's talk about owned. And now I'm going to give you the sort of like examples of each. So owned is your website. It's your blog. It's your newsletters. It's your podcast if it's yours.
Mm-hmm.
It's webinars. It's your social media. Earned is all about third-party credibility.
Mm-hmm.
So I call it OPS, other people's stages.
Mm-hmm.
So today I'm on Yule's stage. So this is an earned opportunity for me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Yule, for
Mm-hmm.
hosting me. I'm grateful
Absolutely.
for it.
Mhm.
You have OPS digital, which is podcasts, webinars. You have OPS physical, the stages that you could speak at. You have other people's stages as far as you could write an op-ed and have it published on a publication that's not yours, but it honored what you had to think and say, and now they're showcasing it to their audience. That's earned.
Mhm.
And then finally, you have paid. These are the ways you accelerate funnels that work. And a lot of people make the mistake and they go straight to paid without having a funnel that is a combination of own and earn.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to put money and think that there's a process and an existing funnel that's going to convert into sales at the end of it.
Yeah.
I actually methodically am laying this out for everybody listening to know that you start with owned and you get your own game together. Then once you have that, get some earned, right? And then once you have that and you have emotion that works, then you throw money behind it. And that's how you make your ads work for you, is by having a process and a funnel that currently works.
And the earn piece is so critical right now with all the changes with going from Google to the AI searches. That authority position is invaluable. And a lot of people are still stuck in just thinking traditional SEO for their website, but they really need to get their name out there in the public, whether it's through podcasts like this or even the media, just so they have the credibility. So Google finds them and says, okay, this is a legit person. This is not an AI, whatever,
Yeah. Like Google, like ChatGPT and, Perplexity and Gemini and all those, right?
Yep.
So like UGC, user-generated content.
Mm-hmm.
User-generated content is like somebody comments about you on a social post, or they give you a Google review, or there's a Reddit string about what you're talking about and they name drop you and add a link. All of these things actually being pulled by the AI agents and surfacing on ChatGPT.
That's right.
So like that's all part of, and I'm sort of just doubling down on your point, Yule, that earned is so important. And there's different forms of it.
So you're coaching people, you're going through that framework with them. What comes next? Where do you excel to help them build demand in your space? And then where could it apply for somebody else, like us, somebody with a,
totally. Our framework, the one that we work with at Outcomes Rocket, is we call it the 3D approach. The first D is discover. And in the discover phase, we're doing all the research that we need to do to figure out everything that we talked about the field, your competitors, your positioning, who are your personas, what are their pain points, and we document them. Right? Most people don't document these things. You got to document them. We put it all together, and then we synchronize it and work with your team so that everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet. Everybody's saying the same thing. If you're using AI to output content, you should. If you're not, you should. Absolutely. But if you do this process at the very beginning of the first D, discover, and you document everything, and you instruct your team specifically that if you're going to use an LLM, you use this LLM with this data and nothing else, so that everything that it outputs matches your very well-defined information, right?
Yep.
So like getting the house in order is something that we start with, and that's basically discover. Then we go to define, and in define is once we figure everything out, the define is, all right, cool. We know the lay of the land. What do you want to achieve? So we get the goals clear and we figure out what the resources are, and then we decide what the roadmap's going to be, and what KPIs we're going to use to measure success or failure.
That's huge. Knowing your numbers.
Know your numbers, because without numbers, there's no score. And without no score, there's no game, right? And so you got to have a scoreboard. And that's where what we do and define. We get the game in order. We define how do we win, how do we lose. And then the third D is deliver. At that point, we either go away and you execute, or you say, hey, look, man, I could do these couple pieces, but I'm going to need you for these couple pieces, or I want you to do it all. It could be anything, right? The spectrum of do it yourself, do it all, help me with these few things. And then that's deliver. So then in the deliver stage, we take a look at those 3 buckets that we talked about, owned, earned, paid. And we decide with the resources, the team that you have, where do we have to focus to hit the number you want to hit? And then we build that program as part of the define stage, and we decide what specific ones we're going to do, and we just get after it on execute.
So you've given the perfect framework for everybody to follow. And this applies to everything, what you just went through. I love it.
It really does. No matter the industry.
What was the biggest challenge I'm curious, when you were doing medical sales that you see that translated over? What you learned how to master, what was the thing that you mastered during medical sales that you say, okay, I can take this and help people?
I will tell you, it is so hard to stand out.
True.
Like top of funnel, stand out, right?
Yeah, it's very difficult.
It's so difficult, man. And that awareness piece is half the battle. There's a saying that like known is better than better.
It's a crazy world we live in, because 25 years ago, you had to earn a title. Today, you give yourself a title at 20 years old. But I see 20-year-olds in the sales space doing life insurance, doing live calls for their cold calling. And those guys are crushing it. What knowledge base does a 19 or 18-year-old have? Because you get your license at 18. What knowledge base do they have life experience? Very little, right? Because they just coming out of high school. They're going straight from high school doing this, and they're crushing it because they are known. And that's a lesson I think everybody. I'm 58. I'm a little bit older than you.
Young man.
And my generation is like, what? I love interviewing 22-year-olds. I interviewed a young lady named Sheikha, and I asked her who her inspiration was. And it's a 19-year-old. And she has a business in New York. It's to your point. And I think if anybody's going to take away from something, it's getting known, but having a framework to follow to get there and strategically doing it. So I think this is a perfect place for us to wind down. Couple things.
Yeah.
How do you define close the deal?
Contract is signed and check is in the hand.
Oh, but that last part is the key. Do you have the money in your hand, right? All right.
Amen.
You're in San Diego, phenomenal city.
Love it here.
You just landed a big deal. Where are you taking your team or your wife or family members to celebrate that you just closed that deal?
I'm going camping.
Oh, how cool is that? I love that.
I just love camping, man. I love getting out. I'm an outdoors guy. So like, get me away from the city, get me in the woods, get me on the mountain. Hell, get me to the desert. I just want to be there.
I love it. All right, last piece. Going back, how old, do you mind me asking how old you were?
41.
Okay. All right. 41. Yeah. So that's a sweet spot, man. If you were looking back at yourself when you were 19, 20, or first going into business, what would you have done? What would you have told your younger self?
Take your time. You're playing a long-term game.
Yes.
Play big on a long-term game.
Love that. All right. How do people get in touch with you to learn more about your business? Outcomes Rocket.
Thanks, Yul. I appreciate the opportunity for that. Outcomesrocket.com is our business. Check us out there. If you wanted to send me a message that I'll read, it's on LinkedIn.
You got a great
LinkedIn
following too. Huge
my main
following.
platform there. Yep. So hit me up on LinkedIn if you want me to actually read your message. Don't send me an email. It will end up in spam. A lot of people ask, I tell these stories and I share kind of examples, and people ask me, man, I wonder if Saul works with people to do this. And the answer is yes, I
Yes.
do. So the places I shared are where you go to find me, and I'm always game for a good conversation.
Well, Saul, it's been an honor to have you on the show. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is a wrap with Saul. He laid it out there. 50% of all businesses fail because they're not creating lead generation, and they don't know how to do it because most people come into a business, they think they got an idea, but they don't know how to market their business. Unless you're in the franchising world. If you're going to go into the franchising business, your odds of success after 5 years go up significantly. 70%, 80%, 90% success rate staying open at that 5-year mark. I've got a book called Your First Franchise Roadmap. I'll walk you through the process to figure out what is the right franchise for you. It might not even be for you when you finish reading the first couple of chapters. I'd love to send you a copy. Just check out closethedeal.com and you'll see the link to get it in the middle of the copy on the front page of closethedeal.com, or go straight to yourfirstfranchise.com. Now, you know the drill. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell. Those things do help so I can continue to bring in guests that bring in different skill sets to help you drive sales, to help you create the marketing to drive the sales, and the mindset piece as well. Understanding the mindset underlies all of this is key. And with that, you know the drill. Be intentional and make today a great day. Bye-bye.